30 years, I have been writing both individual and corporate histories, as you can see from myrobertwood.com. They contain many interesting stories, so I have decided to share some of them from time to time and place them on the web. You know, I do a lot of writing, and I came across more and more the racial concerns of the day, Black Lives Matter, and so on. I got to wondering about my own involvement in our society as far as the potential of doing some kind of misgivings to people, and I hope I don't. But I spent my younger years in a little town in South Dakota named Rochford, and I think there were only about 5 total families there. I think there was a liquor store, not a liquor store, but a saloon called the Bloody Gulch Saloon. There was a little grocery store owned by the King family. And other than that, it was a one-room school where I attended school when I was very young. And so I wondered lately if we had racial tensions back then, and of course I don't remember because I was so young. But there was a black couple, particularly my older sister remembers, and this gentleman, it was Luke and May, and this gentleman used to play the piano on Saturday nights in a, well, I guess you could call it a town hall, little building in the edge of Rochford. Anyway, the only other person that was black was a gentleman named Emil, I believe, and he was a good friend of my father's, and he helped my father in occasion, everything from community potato patch and some of the other activities that my father was involved in. Anyway, I don't remember that there was any distinction in my eyes between white or black or anything else. It was just that he was my father's friend, and I accepted that. Some years later, after my father was dead, my mother moved to a small town, Hill City, South Dakota, and it's there in the Black Hills. My mother had a friendship with a couple that were black, and I don't remember much about that because I was gone mainly by that time, except that my younger brother, one of my younger brothers, was going to college in Walla Walla, Washington, and he had been home on kind of a vacation, and this friend of my mother's, this lady that was black, wanted to go from Hill City, South Dakota to Spokane, Washington to visit some friends there. And David, my younger brother, was going to drive from Hill City back to Walla Walla College, and that would be near Spokane. So he offered to allow her to ride with him, and she refused. But it was interesting that the reason she refused is that she was not so concerned about herself but she speculated that by riding in the car with David or traveling for a long distance like that, that David would be the one that might be endangered by people that would resent David having a black lady in his car. And even back then I didn't think a lot about it, but in retrospect, it must be that she grew up being warned in a way that she had to be careful about her interaction with white people. Anyway, jumping ahead again, I had been writing for quite a few years, doing histories. I can call them autobiographies. I was ghostwriting. And one day, my office was in Miami, Florida. And one time in the 1990s, I had a feature article done about me and my work by a little flyer from Sears, and they called it Mature Outlook. And I had sold a lot of my books from that article as a result of it. And one day I got a call from a gentleman, and he's asked me if you do books, and I was a little perplexed by his question, and I said, "Do you mean you want me to write your history or write a book?" And he said, "Oh, no. He said, I wrote the book." He said, "I want you to do books." And so finally, when I understood, I told him go ahead and send me his manuscript, and I'd take a look at it and see if I could do some books for him. So he sent me his manuscript, and he had spent 6 years researching his family's background in the South, and just in brief, he told me that he had been in the Army, and he had a list of some of his involvement. So it was 1961, he took airborne training and volunteered for the jump school and became a member of the 101 Screaming Eagles of the Jump Boots and Wings. He was also a marksman with the M16 and the M45. And he wrote us an introduction. This book is about my people. It's a product of 6 years of intensive research that has taken me through museums, libraries, and many private homes. This research has yielded a photographic record of Black Americans in their own historical environment, which represents a collection of valuable images. We ended up with quite an in-depth study as a result of what he had researched in his book. And he wanted to name the book My People, Something to Shout About. And I ended up making books for Johnny. He had me at that time do 200 books, and he distributed them as gifts to many of the people he worked with in the New Jersey area, where he did security work for the postal department. And within this book, He had some very interesting things, in my opinion. He said this study represents the economy of the rice culture in the nature of slavery within Sea Island, coastal areas of Georgia and South Carolina. And he said this is unique as opposed to cotton growth. But just very quickly, a little bit of some of the contents. Of 1862, quart of milk was 4 cents, dozen of corn was 5 cents, large watermelons was 15 cents, a dozen eggs for 12 cents, turtle eggs 5 cents each, chicken 12 cents, shrimp 2 quarts for 12 cents, rabbits 12 cents, and then he goes on to talk about the various types of food: raccoon, squirrel, alligator, turtle, goat, numerous kinds of seafood, pork, grits, biscuits, and so on. One of the more significant parts of the content of this book is that of his research for the family slaves of the past. And he took the time to list what they sold for. So he has, for $645, Pompey, age 31, was a rice hand. Kitty, age 10, was a rice hand. Pompey Jr., age 10, was what they called a prime boy. And the next category he has is $580 each. Now keep in mind that this was back in 1860-62. But for $580 each, Goin, age 19, was a rice hand. Cassandra, age 35, was a cotton hand. Emily, age 19, was a cotton prime young woman. Judy, age 11, was a cotton prime girl. And for $1,200 each, Tom, age 22, was a cotton hand. Judd Will, was age 55, was a rice hand. And the next category was for $325 each. Loden, age 54, was a cotton hand. Hager, age 50, was a cotton hand. Loden Jr., age 15, was a cotton hand. And Latia, age 11, was a cotton hand girl. Now, I don't know the meaning of prime and all that, but at least it gives some indication that way back then slaves were worth a lot of money, and of course those dollar figures are kind of astonished me, but I guess not. That's what the white growers of cotton and rice were able, that's how they were able to maintain their own wealth. He concludes his book, his story, talking about the purpose of Black history. And he writes, how does one begin to grasp the human elements, the suffering, the overcoming, the derivations of and creativity, the cruelness of oppression, and the warmth of community? How does one begin to understand the forces of self-pride and self-hate, the hope and desperation, the fear and courage that would describe the lives of Black people from the day they arrive on arrived on the North American shores. In any case, Johnny really brought a lot of things to my attention. It's certainly a book of interest, and there's a lot more to it than what I've touched on. But it still didn't answer the question as to how we can solve racial tensions and other things within our society. And the only thing I can think of is thinking back when I was teaching ninth grade for several years, and a lot of the teachers had trouble with ninth graders getting unruly in their classrooms, but I was not a part of that problem, because in every case my ninth graders were responsive to what I emphasized in the classroom as mutual respect. And I think that could be part of the answer to some of the racial tensions, and that would be mutual respect. And I'm dedicating my new year to paying more attention to that very concept. So Happy New Year for everybody in 2021.